Hey everyone! Oh my god, I didn't even fix my camera before I even came on. My cat's to the side. I'm here. Sorry I'm late. Welcome to my channel, Bookskers and Purrs. I'm Leslie. We are going to watch the finale of the Vampire Lestat, the season finale. Thank you for your patience. I was just too much going on this morning. Hey, Darfelina. Did you already see the episodes, everyone? I was kind of wondering. Um, All right. So I'm on West Coast time, so it's like almost 9:45 my time. Um, Apple leaked the episode and then like promptly removed it. So plenty of people have seen it. Plenty of people are already sharing their thoughts, reviews, and reactions. And I've just been avoiding all of it as much as possible. Luckily, my kid and I were really busy yesterday, so I could just avoid everything. Um, Definitely not. I watched half of it already, but I will start over. Okay, so I am like the song intro just finished. I'm at 2 minutes and 12 seconds and I put it on pause. So it's one list that says bang, 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 bang. Um, so yeah, there's a pin, there's like a photo or whatever, for someone's segment reviewing it. And this episode is called The Failures, and it says, uh, is this season finale a failure? So I'm doing my best just to temper my expectations for this episode. I wonder if we're not getting Kasha at the end. I thought they're gonna kind of do a little bit of a cliffhanger, so I'm wondering if maybe that's not the case. So I know I said this like on a short, but I'm kind of just hoping that we get. Let me see, more Devil's Minion, and I thought it was gonna end with Akasha. I definitely think this season is an exploration of like not just Lestat, what he sees as failures, but maybe really seeing like where that's rooted from. So we'll see. That's kind of where I'm at. Um During the last episode, Lestat and Louis lost their heads. So this is what I'm wondering. Are they both gonna be fine right away? Is it just Lestat? Because they're vampires and apparently they set up for the fact that their heads will stay on for quite a bit before they actually pass, especially if they're older vampires. Maybe if they're like not a vampire for long, that wouldn't happen. But Louis and Lestat have been around for a while. I was also wondering, like I do think that Louis is gonna be like a long term character. Like I just wonder if he doesn't come back right away, if that's like another reason for Lestat to be upset, and that will also enter into like what happens with the Queen of the Damned. Um, but I don't know. So that's kind of where I'm at. And before I start the watch, I'm just going to shout out some channels because I meant to do this every time I have a watch along and then I forget every time. So I'm doing it ahead of time. Um, Let me see. Will this work? I kind of want this to be big. There we go. All right. Great discussions for channels, but they're not really like spoiler chats because they haven't read the books, is what I'm saying. They'll discuss the whole episode, but they haven't read the books. So it's Watch With Me LB, My Seat Perspective, Stugirl Reviews TV, Her Real Review, See This Peer. Tip of the Tongue Talks is so much fun. They're like my go-to, always cracking me up. I think they usually go live on Tuesday or Wednesday. And the other one is for reactions, Fox Taco, Frank Freezy, Bad Medicine, The Horror Bandwagon, sorry, and Real Queer React. They all have reactions, discussions I really enjoy. But none of these channels have read the book as far as I know. So just don't spoil it for them, okay? That's why I like doing what I do. How do I add myself? Remove this. Remove this. Hold on, I gotta go back and fix this. There I am. So yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, so check out those channels and any last thoughts? I just bought the books. I need to know more of what is going to happen. I was so glad you brought that up because I don't know. Okay, so there's a buddy of mine that also has a channel, and I like convinced him to start watching the show with me. And he's like, "So what did they change?" And I'm so in love with this adaptation that I'm like, they didn't really change a lot because I know like the heart of what the books is saying is there. Like it's a great. I love this adaptation, but there are changes. And he started watching with me, and he was like, "Leslie, there's all sorts of changes." Because he's only referencing the movie, right, with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, because that is more of like a direct, if that makes any sense, adaptation in terms of like what time period it is and stuff like that. But just keep in mind when you read them, the show is not just adapting like one like when you read Interview the Vampire, you're gonna feel like there's all this stuff that's not really in there that was on the show, but that's because the show is adapting like all the books. So you get like one specific kind of like villainous perspective of like Lestat, and then Louis is super passive. And it's not until you get Lestat's perspective, because he does take up so many of the other books. He's like the main protagonist. But then he'll sprinkle in things about his relationship with Louis and with Claudia. And so it's only like sprinkled in. And so the show is grabbing all of that to recontextualize what we get as far as like an adaptation. Um, so yeah, I'd say that keep that in mind. I feel like I always have to bring that up because so many people are like when the show first came out, don't like or they don't see Louis as he is from the books, but I'm like, but he is because in Tale the Body Thief, Lestat says X, Y, Z about Louis, and in the Vampire Lestat, he says this and that. Like there's all this different like context from different characters that comes in that informs actually that first book. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm starting at I'll put the banner even though I haven't put it up yet. I'm at 212. 2 minutes in and 12. Oh, thank you. Yeah, there you go. Same thing. Bree is on it. Someone posted a reading order for the show. It seems like it's pulling from several books. Yeah, like for instance, okay, so my go-to reference is they keep grabbing from the book Merrick, which I think might be the seventh book, 7 books in, and what happens in there, like the different scenarios have been put in season 2, but then also in this season, like when we actually see Merrick and there's a seance. But that's not all they pulled from Merrick. They also pulled from Merrick for like season 2. Um, so that's kind of like where I'm at. And even like the structure of Regina, if once you read Merrick, once you get to that book, you'll see like, oh, actually the characteristics and how they describe Merrick was actually used for Regina. Which I think was an interesting choice. That's why I can't tell. I can't tell if the show did that to kind of like throw us off and make me as a reader think that maybe that's also Merrick. But that wasn't the case. Anyways, I could go on and on. But I'm excited for what you think about the books and that journey. The Naughty Librarian. Oh, I forgot to add the Naughty Librarian is great for anyone that either whether you're going to read the books or you don't want to read the books, but you want to know what's going on in the books. The Naughty Librarian has like really fun breakdowns of the books. But yeah, so I think that's everything I could think of to say before this. I'm just gonna lower and temper my expectations. I thought maybe we're not gonna end with the queen. Either way, I'm going in for the ride and we'll see what happens. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the banner. 2 minutes, 12 seconds in. I hope you have all your snacks and everything. I'm about to press play, okay? 1, 2, and watch. Here we go. Oh, so it starts right where. Let's stop, let's stop, let's stop, let's stop. Okay, Armand. Oh, they're feeding him blood on like an IV type thing. Armin's. Oh, Armand is terrible. Hmm. I'm 12 minutes, 52 seconds in, Angel Sashi. Glad to have you here. Daniel's at the bowling ball. I mean, kosher is clown scripted now. Oh, fuck. They have Regina. Hi, Andy. Wow. I thought it was going to be the T team that got Regina. Oh my God. It's Armando all over again, hurting Claudia. Not you, not you. I thought he was going to ask for Akasha. He was asking for Gabby. I can't believe I'm saying this. I hope Louis just lets Regina die. Like, don't turn her into a vampire. Oh, Armand. Yo, he meant their face. I have so much to say about that, the adaptation. Ooh, Alex, what are you up to? Mm. Mm. D Pharma. I'm glad the actress came back. Mm. You got your nails done. You experience trauma, and then you're like, get nails done. Raglan James, right? I was forget his name. I had to pamper myself in honor of all the witches who burned. Truly. Mm. 'Which is what was going on that Tamaska show, right? They're making more. 20 minutes. Mm. Oh, it was Armand. Marius is there. Isn't it funny they're using a cell phone timer? Raise your hand. Swear this finally is just a sit and take it all in. Mouth just open. Yeah. Who is this guy? Who's the guy? I don't know. I don't know who Enzo is. He might not mean anything. But I thought this might have something to do with Memnock the Devil, but it's been a while. I'm gonna write this down. Enzo. It might not mean anything. I don't know. Hmm. Telegrish girl. I don't know. Thanks for being here. I am 45. I'm like 46 minutes in. Plastic Dracula, Alex. Hmm. Oh, I love this. I'm 47:20. It's okay if you're behind. Oh, Paul. Mm. Mm. The birds. Oh, Paul's gonna add time, I bet. Hmm. Louis? Where's Louis? Oh my god, I'm rewinding this for a second. Hold on. It's over, but I'm just backing it up by he puts out his cigarette. Okay. I just wanted to hear what he said for a second. All right. What comes after this? I'm gonna leave. I'm just gonna leave it there. I'll watch everything else later. I think this was a great episode. And since the episode was leaked and other people have watched before me already, and so I know there's some disappointment behind this finale, I'm glad I know that. So I kind of went in with like tempered um expectations. But I love this. I love this finale. Watch the behind the scenes? Okay, 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 I'll do it now. I just don't want everyone waiting, but I'll watch it for a second. Oh shoot, let's see if this is connected. Okay, it's connected. Dude, I'm trying to say anything. Yeah, no, you're right. It does give perspective. Jacob Anderson is incredible. I'm shocked Regina survived, by the way. The scene with Armand and Louis. Incredible and find like a good like a grief, but you know what I like about him? He fangirls and gives his co-stars props. Like he seems genuinely hyped and happy for them. Yeah, truly. They definitely bookended this where it starts in the future, or I guess today, and then it ends with that, right? It's interesting. Oh, Yeah, I thought it was gonna end with Akasha showing up, but they did something different. But I look forward to it. I love Eric Bogosian. Yeah. Armand is like so many levels of diabolical, and that they still suck me in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hold on to that thought because I thought something else was gonna go on during that scene. Linked to his hairstyle, by the way. Oh, the fact that Paul was in this episode, I was on the verge of tears. They Brie, they do. They really do. They know how to make me be like feel like on the brink of tears and then laugh. Like who does that? Oh my god, I'm trying to say anything. I'm trying to wait till the episodes. I mean, this section's over. Armand just wanted Louis to tell him he loves the same man Armand loves more than he loves Armand. Yeah, Assad, Sam Delaney, all the awards. Yeah. Okay. After the episode part is done, where do I start? I don't have my lights on. That would probably help. What an episode, everyone. Usually I work backwards because it's like the last thing I was thinking of, but I'm gonna go by my notes. If I miss anything, you know, feel free to write all your thoughts and feelings in the chat. All right. I'm just gonna go through my notes. I don't know how else to do this. Um, I am glad that I saw who was it? You know what? I'm gonna go look it up. Get ready for my 50 gallon gazillion questions. Yeah, go ahead. There's just a YouTuber I also didn't mention, and now I'm like, dang, I wanna let's see if they okay. It's the movie Lair. Um, they had on their pin photo it says was the finale a failure? And it's a spoiler review. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm glad I saw that because I'm thinking people have like probably a lot of feelings. We've seen Akasha. Here's the thing. I had like an inkling. I kind of had a feeling that maybe we were not going to end. Okay, how do I say this? I had hopes we would end with like Akasha showing up, and then that was like we weren't really going to see too much of her, but we know something goes awry. And then the next season, we would dig into that. But I also thought that might not happen. And the only reason why I thought that might not happen is because when the actress was interviewed, Sheila Atim, she happened to say like the part that she shot was like at the tail end of the entire shoot and they only had like 3 days or something like that. So that tipped me off like, oh, that means we're not going to get any more of her. That's kind of like what I thought. But then again, they're not going to give us all the details of what's to come. So that's why I thought maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're still going to get her. But it turns out that was all we were going to get for Akasha for now. The writers, the writer was emotional. Oh yeah, the writers was emotional, poetic, deep, just so good. Yeah, the writers are incredible. Angel Sashi, you're listening to Sashi's Never Ending Questions album Infinity Side A. Oh man, please keep them coming. Because you know what happens? I have these live discussions and I'm just trying to go like on what I'm thinking off the cuff. But then later on, I think about like 1,000 other things and I'm annoyed that I didn't bring it up. But there's not so much I could talk about. I saw that thumbnail too. Now I have to find out what happens in Queen of the Damned. There's a movie, if you don't know about it, there's a movie that was not well received. I remember it because Aaliyah, the singer, was in it. So I remember Aaliyah had already passed away. The movie came out. I showed up because although I'm a fan of the books, I am a fan of Aaliyah. So it was me and everyone else there in the theater is also a fan of Aaliyah. But the movie was terrible. So if you're looking for a good time, I want to know, you could watch that. It is a terrible, terrible adaptation. You want to talk about terrible adaptations? The only thing good about that movie was Aaliyah. Even Anne Rice said it. She didn't like the movie, but she was like, Aaliyah was great. There's one takeaway from that movie. But yes, please read the books. Please, please. Okay, yes, we need more Akasha. Yeah. But again, if I had watched this and hadn't seen some of the discourse, I mean, I was really offline. I was like, I don't want to be spoiled. Then I probably would have been more disappointed. But I felt like, you know what? The season is called The Vampire Lestat. We are focusing on his life, and other people have pointed out that we only scratched the surface of what was in the Vampire Lestat. So I'm thinking they're probably going to handle the book the same way they handled the first book, Interview the Vampire, and break it up into 2 seasons, and they're just going to keep mixing in Queen of the Damned. That might be what they do. But you know what? The writing is so incredible. I'm biased. You're really not going to hear me ever complain about the show too much. It's pretty rare that I have a critique for whatever they do. And there are things. So this is another thing. I'm not even discussing the episode yet. This is another thing about why I'm such a huge fan of the show and why I don't critique it very hard. Maybe however many seasons the show gets, whenever it's done, then I'll be able to look at it collectively and make critiques. But the problem with making certain critiques is the show is constantly like, it's like self-referential. They keep referencing and recontextualizing things. So like with Claudia this season, okay, that means we're still discussing things that happened in season 1. So season 2, but season 1 as well. So um I feel like there's more of a reaction this season to how certain characters are being portrayed, and that has felt frustrating because I keep thinking, have you been watching this whole time? Like every time I see a character, it is like in essence them, but it's through someone's perspective. So there's like so much nuance to it. And I'm sure there's going to be another season, and then we're going to get more nuance to those characters and see them in a different light. And it doesn't mean that necessarily anyone's lying. It really is just their perspective and how they felt. And so we're seeing so much of this show through like the lens of feelings, and also only with the knowledge of that person has, right? Louis is going off the knowledge of his experiences, and then he's also going by um, Claudia's journals. So, and that kind of is true to real life. You only have so much of a perspective, and then you bring someone else, and they talk about the conversation about the same scene, and you realize there were things that you weren't aware of, or you didn't realize someone else perceived a situation differently. And so, anyways, that's kind of how me and my tower. Yeah, I love this. I thought it was incredible. I think it's a really enticing way for people to wonder um, what's happened. And before I continue, I keep forgetting to say this, but I know I have it on my pin photo. This is a spoiler chat, so I've read the books, and so I'll just be discussing it. Sometimes I discuss theories, and most of the time I'm wrong anyways, because the show always comes up with something way better than I could ever come up with. Um, so we'll go there. All right, and to get to my notes. Um, I liked when we open the scene and we're seeing Lestat in his kind of like, we'll call it purgatory, um, between whatever the between he's in. As the waiters come out, he references them as a murder of waiters, which I like because birds are such a heavily used symbolism throughout the entire series, and we see that it's happening here again, and I really like where that goes. Um, but right here at the beginning, we hear murder of waiters, and so that makes me think of like a murder of crows. That's really what he is doing. His mind's kind of mixing up. Here's a group of people, but also it's written in the style of Anne Rice, which is very like flowery. Um, and the show is constantly picking up on that. I'm starting to read Queen of the Damned. I'm reading one chapter. Uh, what is it? Devil's Minion. And there's like a line that the book is in the other room, but there's you as you start reading the book, you'll see that you'll be able to pluck out lines, and you'll realize how they use it for dialogue. And so there's a line that the stat says in trial in season 2 where he was referring to Louis and what he did to him, and he goes, and now he's a broken thing. That line is from Queen of the Damned, but Armand is saying it. He doesn't say broken thing, but he says something along that lines. Um, Let me go grab the book. I'm still live, but I just want. Okay, I ran. And I ran so far away. Okay. I think I like double underlined it. Let's see if we could find it very quickly. Where is it? If I can't find it, I'll let it go. So even like on page 72, it says silence except for the singing of the birds. So the show is constantly grabbing onto birds because that's what Anne Rice did. And so they really drive that point home this time around. Um, Yeah, I'll let it go. So I'm gonna keep looking. There's so much of the language in here that I'm like, oh yeah, this is what they used. Um, Angel Sashi. I guess I should kind of move this like this. Okay. Do you feel like the do I feel like it was rushed after the stat woke up? Like they went from Raglan taking the bowling bag to Lestat awake, and then Alex, who was part of it. Is it just casually there? Like, what am I missing? I Okay. So if there's any critique of the show, I feel like some of it was rushed. Um, this is 7 episodes. What they're trying to do, I think they need like 10 episodes. I'm greedy, but I'm not that greedy. So one of the things that I wanted is the section about um Nikki, I think needed to be one whole episode. So much of the story we're told through song, which is fine. They can get away with so much. Um, and I think from what the chatter that I hear, and I can't even give you an article I reference because there's I've been reading stuff nonstop about the season, but I think Roland Jones didn't want to repeat too much of what we've already seen with Louis and Lestat. But I thought, isn't that the whole point in the show that they're constantly showing like the cycles of trauma and how events mirror each other? Because that is what they're doing. So when it came to Nikki, what I wanted was there's some changes that they made. Yeah, okay. So I'll critique it. There's some changes that they made when it comes to how important his mother is, and in the books, he Lestat's home. He doesn't like his life at home, and he's just very misunderstood by his family. Although his mother is kind of like cold but also encouraging all at the same time, um, which I think they're really trying to show. But also, um, sorry, I'm trying to make myself focus because I'm thinking about so many things. So many things. When it came to Nikki, Nikki was in the town. What happens is it doesn't have to happen exactly as it was in the books, but in the books, Nikki brings Lestat the wolf killer coat, and it's just like a thank you from the whole village. But that's how they meet, and then they already kind of like establish a friendship, and so it's actually Nikki that's the one that's the like connection to leaving Auvergne. I thought that was important um, to show like what Nikki meant to Lestat, and then also that he miscalculated that relationship because what happens is Lestat loves Nikki and Nikki is going to go off anyway, so he goes with him. And so then, Lestat falls into this theater troupe, yada yada. We got what we got. But the misunderstanding is that Lestat is, they're both struggling artists. They really don't have much money. They're getting by, but Lestat still loves his life. What does he do? He endures. And so Nikki's not like mentally well. So he was under the impression and also had jealousy towards Lestat because they thought, actually, I'm miserable. I don't think I play very well. Like he thought it was going to be like they're both going to unalive themselves, basically. So, and that's kind of a reveal in the book when my neighborhood, when Lestat realizes that's how Nikki really feels, right? And so I thought that was important to show like a miscalculation that Lestat has in his romantic life, right? He thinks everything's going great, but then the rug gets pulled from under him. I did like how the show really displayed that um, Lestat didn't necessarily want to make Nikki a vampire, but and that contrasts with Louis, right? Because Lestat really chooses Louis. He wants to make him a vampire, and he doesn't have that relationship with Nikki. So I just felt like just like Claudia got one solid episode in season 1 where she enters into their life, and then we kind of see like the upswing of their family and then the downswing all in one episode. I really think Nikki needed that, just one solid episode for that. Because I also think that it would be a tragedy to see that, oh, Lestat's been through this before, and he he fell into the same thing with the person that he loves, and but that he hurt most, right? So that is like a big critique I have for like this season overall. There's so much that feels rushed. Um, and again, I say this as someone that loves the adaptation with all the changes. Um, but I think you're pointing at something that feels, it feels rushed. Like this season finale should have been like, it should have been two parts, really, I think. Um, but again, I think they did the best that they could. I don't know what kind of budget cuts or what's going on. I really think this should have been like 10 episodes. And in today's like economy with how seasons are shorter and shorter, I don't think 10 episodes is like that much of an ask, you know, especially if you want the story told well. But you know, the writers, the creator, they really have been pulling like a rabbit out of their hat and doing an incredible job. So that's why. But this does, they're rushing through so much, and then also because I've read the books, I feel like my perspective's skewed and I can't tell how valid my argument is. Because if other people are watching it and they still get the sense of how much Lestat cared and the spiral of Nikki, then maybe what I'm saying doesn't matter and it comes across. But when I watched it this season, I didn't feel like invested or care as much for Nikki as Lestat would want us to be. Um, Things play out slightly different, right? In season 1 and season 2, but I still feel so drunk and in the spiral of, like, Louis and Lestat's love, and I think we needed to feel that way of how Lestat felt about Nikki and his turbulent, emotional state of their relationship, but oh, no, I don't mind. Yeah, and sorry, go from the top, you can answer that later. No, no, no. No, don't let me forget anything. Oh, we're gonna forget something. Okay, I am the only straight guy who is into this show. I love this show. I think everyone should be watching it. It's incredible storytelling, you know? Um, Carlo LD, Carol, right? Okay, I'll just say Carol. It should be 2 seasons of the Vampire Lestat, maybe, yeah. But it still felt rushed. I saw the Aaliyah movie when it came out, but I guess it was, forgettable. I'm so curious about the eye patch and missing leg, and I don't remember A Destroyed World. I did love the Lestat season, though. Yeah, and we don't have the answer to the eye patch and the missing leg. You know what I thought was gonna happen? Because Armand and Daniel took their heads, I thought it was gonna turn out that I was wrong and that it was Armand that took some of Louis' leg, but I guess I was wrong. But I think it's gonna be an Akasha thing because he doesn't have his limb back. I don't know, but, you know, the answers are gonna come through. 10 episodes should be the minimum. Yeah, just for this season and everything they're trying to accomplish, I just think that we as an audience, we would have been more invested if it was just, like, a little bit more fleshed out, but who knows, you know? We didn't even get a kiss. I honestly, okay, I was not expecting a kiss between Louis and Lestat this season. I really wasn't. I know everyone's feeling like the lack of their relationship, but I felt like we're meant to feel that. But by the end of the episode, I was like, a little smooch. And I didn't, I don't know. You know, I'll be visiting my cottage very soon because that there wasn't a lot of loving. Um, in the dream state, I'll call it purgatory. The purgatory state that Lestat's in, he references that like everyone at the table is the failure finders, which I find very interesting. And I wrote down the date that's happening on All Saints Day. And this whole season has been about him digging into like how he's failed other people, how he's failed in life, to strangers and loved ones and everyone in between. But I also think that it's him understanding where that comes from, as far as like his mom's concerned. Although she shouldn't have to take all the blame. That's another thing. Like he did have a father, a terrible, terrible father. Um, but I like how that comes up. Like this feels like almost like an essay of an episode to just kind of like wrap it all up. And I find it interesting that Magnus says that consent is like a 20th century thing. It's like you're so trash, Magnus. Even in his purgatory state, Angel Sashi, him making his mama switch to the oh yeah, that will be on the charge, the chair, uh, irritated me. That irritated me because you know what I thought was gonna happen? I thought it was gonna be in Queen Akasha when he says, "I want my mother." For some reason, I thought because she's the mother of all vampires, I thought it was gonna be her. I thought that would have been like a powerful dynamic. Yeah, the one in charge. Yeah. Yeah, I find that very interesting because then they're opposing each other, right? They're on like opposite ends, which is interesting because that's something that the show plays with in season 1 and season 2. Louis and Daniel are like on opposing sides of each other. And then eventually it becomes Louis and Armand in season 2. There's like this shift of who's antagonist. And here they have her at the end, and I think that's because also that pissed me off, but then I realized, oh, he's doing it maybe like not completely conscious of the fact that because she's the antagonist of his life, in some ways. And it's like a wake up call to him, um, of acknowledging what happened in his past and his constant life with her for him to be like self aware that this is not like a healthy person to be around. I also expected to hear Akasha as his other maker. Yeah, me too. That was yeah. But I guess that makes sense because she gave birth to him, which I'm only realizing right now that we're discussing it. So I think what the show also plays with is how he's spent his whole like vampiric life, his human life. He's telling himself, well, I guess I should say vampiric life. This is no longer my mother, but then acknowledging here, like, this is my mother. Because I think him saying that I feel like he uses vampirism as an excuse, um, for really like the abuse that's going on at the hands of his mother in a way, because she manipulates him. Um, so I think that's part of that. But also by the end, when we see him and I guess he's speaking in 2026 or some unknown year, he's now taking accountability. I mean, too little, too late. The world, a big chunk of the world's destroyed, but he's taking responsibility now instead of blaming everyone else, which is, by the way, the same journey that Louis was on, right? And growth is incremental. By the end of season 2, so much about of Louis' story is him blaming other aspects of his life, but then having to hit a point where he takes accountability like for his part of what's going on in his life. And I think that's what was going on with Lestat this season. Um he's done a bunch of terrible things and he has to it's like it's the opposite but not, right? He knows he's well aware that he's a monster who does terrible things, but then he's having to shift back and realize like, oh, this person is maybe very much at the root of how I'm generating these cycles, and I can't break those cycles until I'm like self-aware of that. So that's like another level of like accountability for Lestat, I think. Angel Sashi, are we supposed to take away that they are eating Lestat's soul, there was something about eating his soul when they kept chowing down on the gross food. That's probably it. You caught it better than I did. I feel like I don't catch everything the first time I see things, and I don't necessarily look at everything visually. So that's definitely, yeah, I could see how that could be what they're doing. Um, esp excuse me, especially as he's running out of time. Um, but that's I love that you brought that up. Um, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm staring at my notes. I'm trying to think of everything. What were they eating? I wonder if they're eating some gross version of like cabbage, like burnt cabbage or something. I'm gonna have to go back and look. Um, Regina. Okay, so I guess we'll go to the scene with Louis, Regina, Armand, Dr. Farid at the butcher shop. Oh, yeah, you got it. And even Magnus said something about we eat our soul at the long table. Ooh, yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. I bet he would have ended up in HE double hockey sticks if they had finished. I think that's a great point. They were eating his soul. Um, yeah, okay, so the butcher shop. We'll talk about the butcher shop. I saw a still, and so Armand had his hair kind of like the kind of like half put up, which I think Angel Sashi brought this up, right? Someone did. Um, and I when I saw the still of that, I thought we were gonna get I thought this was gonna be an entirely different scene. Because I saw Armand's hair pulled back, I keep thinking about the fan theory people have that Armand um is Alice, like Daniel's, I guess, first wife or whatever, and that he like maybe like changed his memories to think that the Armand was Alice, but maybe it was just their time together and he's trying to like bury it in his mind. So when I saw his hair like that, I thought, are we going to go visit Alice? Basically, is what I thought. But I was completely wrong. Totally different scene. Regina is a plant by Armand. And I think this is another great example of adaptation because in the book Merrick, so we're still kind of like I could see how they read Merrick and are like taking the ideas and like exchanging them into something else. And that is Louis meets Merrick in a cafe and she puts him under a love spell. But also Louis does need her help. He's looking for the ghost of Claudia. She helps him out with that. The scene happens very similar to how we saw it, except Lestat's not there. It's just Louis and Merrick. Um, but ultimately, what Louis doesn't know is that Merrick did put a love spell on him. Because what she wants to do is she wants to become a vampire. Um, so she really lured Louis into a situation that he's not really aware of, and so he really doesn't know who Merrick is. And so they did something similar here, right? They have Regina, but in a way, Regina's a plant because there was someone else behind Regina, and that was Armand. So I think this is like a great example of how they're taking a book and they're taking pieces of it to adapt. Oh yeah, the Alice theory. I mean, could still be, yeah. I I don't really want it to be true to some extent. I want Alice to actually exist. And now that we've seen this particular season, I want it to be like Alice existed, but Armand uses the ex-wives to spy in on Daniel. Like Armand crosses a line. Um, Similar to how he does with Alex. There's a scene on the bus. Lestat's talking to somebody I forgot, and then he talks about Armand, and the next scene, Alex appears, the bandmate, And I thought, oh, that's interesting. He mentions Armand, then we see Alex, and eventually we see Armand. And so, like, Alex is a connecting factor. So I just wonder if they're still gonna if Alice exists, but again, Armand's infiltrating their mind. Um, I kind of would rather it be that than Armand being Alice. I don't want them to mess too much with Danielle's reality in a way because at some point that would be weird. Like if we find out that let's say Daniel isn't an award-winning journalist, that almost wouldn't make any sense. Like, is anyone like double checking the facts in his books? Do you know what I mean? I'm kind of wondering about that kind of stuff. Like there you can only break reality so much before it won't make sense. I don't know. By the way, did you catch Daniel calling Armand his companion? So annoyed with Daniel this season. Yeah, but you know what? Like at this point in the story, we don't know how much Daniel knows or doesn't know. They really haven't revealed that to us. That's another thing we didn't get. I thought we would at least get one episode, kind of like San Francisco episode in season two, episode 5. I thought we would get something similar this season, and we didn't get it. And I guarantee you it had to do with budget. But we needed another one of those like bottle episodes of a reveal of like that story, and they're not giving it to us. And I think that I don't think that's translating well for other people that haven't read the books. Um, but we'll see. Maybe they'll save it and they'll stick it for season 4, and they could treat it more like a reveal and add context. I think that would make up for what we don't get this season. So in season 1 and 2, there's just a lot of glances between Armand and Daniel. Um, and for instance, I keep referring to the San Francisco episode. I think it's like my favorite. We hear things about Daniel, right? Like Armand infiltrates Daniel's mind, and we find out that he put a bag over a woman's head and he's engaging with her in a way that's like sexual, but also rough. And then also Louis says he's saying all these nasty things about Lestat to the tape. Um, but then Daniel says, "Oh yeah, I know guys like that." And then in this season, Armand reveals that he has been spying on Daniel for most of his life and says things like, "Oh yeah, I made sure to basically glamour that guy so he didn't remember your interactions." So basically, what they're getting at is that like Daniel likes it rough and violent. Okay, we know what show we're watching, and so what Armand finds through Daniel is that he's finding someone that's likes violence, and so who could ever love a monster other than someone that enjoys that? So I think that's what they're really getting at. And so we like Daniel, but we have to take in this is another monster, and he's a monster even in his human life. Angel Sasha, I'm still a bit slow to the what's going. Oh, Armand's motivations, because if for revenge, what was the point of reading his apologies? And also, was Gabriella also behind this? Lestat hinted at it while yelling at her. Um, okay, so I'm still wrapping my head around the Armand of it all. Um, we didn't get any more Baby Jenks. I thought Baby Jenks was going to be the one to hurt Regina. Um, you know what? Let me think. Let me take a sip. Um, yeah, because I think Armand he has so many like nefarious things that he's doing. I'm still trying to digest it and see how I feel about this. Um, so really, Armand used Regina to get at Louis, but I think it's a couple of things. It's just not that. It's not just to have. I think maybe like what's underlying it is the relationship issues. But what it's a couple of functions. It's that, but it's also that he has a concern about the great conversion, and so he's trying to like stop or delay it. Um, I think he feels really hurt. But again, Lestat's so bananas. I'm like they're all monsters doing crazy monstrous things. Like Lestat's involving himself in all these other vampires being made. His mother's using him to get to that point to make so many vampires. But also it's that underlying thing of I think Armand is reflecting, but I don't know how genuine that is about because he cuts off the man's head and puts him in a butcher shop and says, "Here, now your turn." So I don't think it's like I don't Armand has a long way to go on his healing journey. But what did get to me in this is what they have not talked about their whole relationship, which that scene almost had me in tears. Like Jacob Anderson, bodiless, almost had me in tears when he confronts Armand and says, there's that thing that we don't talk about, and it's the fact that you were you were sex trafficked as a child, which by the way, he says in season 2 when they're at the museum and Armand tells his story and he's looking at a painting of himself that doesn't really look like him per se. And I'm gonna spiral in a whole circle. Armand looks at this painting and says, "My maker painted this, and I haven't had anyone paint me in like so many hundreds of years." Or what he's really saying is, no one sees me. And not only that, but I don't think Armand understands that his maker didn't really even see him either, because that painting, it really doesn't look that much like Armand, right? That's my dang cat. Hold on. Girl, are you gonna get in here? Stop complaining. Come inside. Come on.
Oh, are you still live?
I'm still alive. Do what you need to do. All right, get up there. What do you want? You're making everyone wait. Say hi. That's Tariel. I'm sorry. So I was in a flow state. So Armand is saying to Louis back in the past, um, no one is really like seeing me. Chill. And my maker trafficked me, and like there's all these people involved in that. But also the whole season in Paris in the past, Louis not really that into Armand anyways. On top of that, everyone could hear you. Okay, baby, what do you want? There she goes again. And so he ends up engaging in this relationship, which is not really based in love. They're together, but they're both lying to themselves, because Armand and Louis' relationship is more built on just spite, hate, love for each other, for Lestat, and they're holding on to. There's guilt about what happened to Claudia, and that spite and guilt is so strong they stay together for as long as they do. Where am I going with that? So yes, that leads to the butcher shop, and I think that Armand's another character that has a lot of trauma, so he just keeps doing these terrible things, and also it's like tied up into no one really hears me, no one really sees me. Like he's just someone that's in a lot of like pain, and that's ultimately what stops the continued butchery of Louis, right? Is Louis, he's not just apologizing for them not loving each other, he's like, hey, I'm going to apologize for everything we didn't talk about, for all the pain that you're in, because you literally were sex trafficked and you were in a relationship with someone that trafficked people for sex. And that in itself is like so painful. And then they got into their relationship, and there's a constant like power play that they're both doing. One, because Armand needs it, but also it reinforces his trauma of I don't know how to be. I either have to be the leader or I have to be led. Like the relationship can't be equal. He sees like there has to be a lot of like a power in a relationship instead of like that shouldn't even be a thing. Um and even when like Louis wants to make Madeline into a vampire and he wants Armand to be there, there's like something I didn't really understand at that moment. But when Louis tells Armand we could bring her in to being a vampire, it could be like this nice thing. And Armand says, are you asking me or are you making me? And so like there's this like little boy lost part of this person. Um because he's saying there's something I don't want to do. I'm saying no, but if you're gonna make me and I'll still do it, right? There's just he's a very warped person. So I think um ultimately Armand digging into like finding a Claudia lookalike has so much to do with their effed up relationship and how Claudia hovered above them. And he's gonna say that he's apologizing, but I think at the moment he's like, here now you apologize. It's really not about Armand's apology. It's like it's him being manipulative. He's saying like you hurt me, apologize to me, which is so messed up. Angel Sashi, him carving that A in Louis' chest is diabolical. It is, and since I don't know how you see like vampirism, it's not like a science, right? It's a it's like a magic thing. Is that A gonna stay there? Because like Lestat has scars, but it was when he was human, so that's why we see him now. I wonder if he just has to put blood there and it like will heal. But that was shocking. That is very shocking because also in the previous episode with Claudia, she says all these like terrible things to Louis, coming from a place of pain. And one of them is kind of like more of a symbolic thing that she's saying to Louis, which is, um, I decided to kill Lestat because I knew I could control you. But the way she says it is like, oh, I saw that itching on your chest, and like she calls him a slave, basically. Which by the way is what she was saying in season one, right? Like Ghost Claudia is saying it more directly that that's what she thinks. But in season one, she said it in a manipulative way of like, oh, well, Lestat sees us as his slaves, basically. And you're the housewife and I'm the maid and he's just using us. But I like she's saying that that's what Lestat's doing. And by the time we get to Ghost Claudia, that's how she feels about Louis. So I think she was just kind of like constantly playing a chess game with both of them to get out of their like toxic relationship situation. Um, and I'm circling back, like I keep going all over the place. I'm going back to the fact that when Armand carves the A into him, I feel like that's another layer of all of that we've been talking about. And it's a terrible thing that it's coming from someone that was also enslaved, because that is what happened to Armand, right? And that he does that to Louis. It's incredibly diabolical. It's incredibly deep and layered. Um, and it's almost like what's that book? A Scarlet Letter. Um, he's putting a letter on him, and that's something that Louis has to carry. Ugh, very painful. But yeah, when Louis was having that cool conversation, I was like on the brink of tears. Angel Sashi. Oh, still haven't read the books, lol, but did okay, when Armand's talking about attaching Regina's head to Louis' body, I heard something like that happen in the books with Claudia, I think. Yeah, okay, so that would be in the book of Armand. So this is such another good example of why looking at the first book and thinking it's going to be a direct adaptation would not work, because by the time we get to the book of Armand, which is I think the sixth book maybe, Armand gives us information about something that happened in Annie the Vampire, and that's 6 books deep. And so this whole butcher scene didn't happen in the books, but again, they're taking from different things that people have done. We all know what Armand's capable of. He would dismantle his own coven members if he had to. So this is in line of who Armand is. So in the books, it's in the book of Armand, but I have to go back and take a little peek at that part because it is a very tiny part that Armand says, but it has big ramifications. So in the books, um, okay, so everything happens. How do I interrupt this up? Here's something that's telling about the trial. When the trial happens, at some point, Louis is not telling the story anymore because Louis is taken away. And so then we're stuck with only Lestat's perspective. I mean, Lestat, Armand's perspective of what happened. He has to fill in the blanks because there's just things that Louis didn't see. And then Regina and Regina. Oh my God, I'm all over the place. Claudia and Madeline die. Well, in the books, the way it happened was, and the trial was not like the spectacle that we saw. The trial is, the vampires kidnap them, and it's very quick. It's a makeshift trial. It's like, oh, you're guilty. Okay, let's go burn them. But what Armand reveals way books later is that Claudia went to Armand because in the books she's like 5 years old. She doesn't want to be a child forever, and there's no science to being a vampire, right? We don't know what is possible. And Armand is into science, so it was like a Frankenstein type situation where I think he took a body. I don't know if it was Madeline or not. I really don't think it's Madeline, but he did take a body and try to put Claudia's head on the body. So he was trying to help her in the most effed up gothic literature horror version of trying to put this child on a adult body, because that was what she wished, but ultimately it didn't work and she was dying. And so I think part of the trial, part of killing Claudia was to cover up what had happened, basically. Um, I don't know if they're even going to do that on the show, but I did find it telling that Armand says Claudia would approve of this scientific gift. So I find that interesting because the show has all this knowledge of what's happened, what Armand has said in the books, and so it may play a bigger role later on. Maybe that was something that's another layer between Armand and Claudia's relationship that he saw in her as far as her going crazy. That maybe they were doing experiments and they're not talking about it yet, but they're trying to chop off bodies and see if Claudia could be on a more adult body. I don't know. That could be something that happens in later seasons, and it could be one of those things that happens way, way, way down the line. Or maybe it'll never happen, and all we have is that one line, which is Armand saying Claudia would approve of this scientific gift. So Daniel's proving his love for Armand through his actions, not caring about the consequences of his action. I think that um in season 1 and season 2, there was like this undercurrent, this longing they had for each other. And by the time that Armand admits that he loves Daniel, it feels very out of like the blue. It feels out of the blue for the audience. It feels out of blue for Daniel. But he is someone that's deeply lonely, not just as a vampire, but I think in his life because he was such a monster. It's probably what I mean. It probably ended his marriages, but also the relationship that he had with his kids. Um, and so I don't think it's not. I don't think it's just only like proving it. I think now that Daniel has love of someone that's equally a monster to him, I think he's willing to go to the moon and the back for Armand because he's like, "You're a monster too. You do monsters together." Daniel enjoys doing these violent things. So I think it's like big time accountability on his part too. I think at least I think for now. Angel Sashi, I have to go head out for World Cup watch party, but awesome season. Great insights as usual. I'm still gonna ask you 5 million more questions soon. Please do also check out the Naughty Librarian because they're really helping me put things into perspective that I've forgotten. Oh, and by the way, I just looked up what they are saying about Enzo on Twitter. Just a theory, but don't want to say in case you don't want to spoil. But bye. I'm totally gonna reach out to you by DM because I do want to know. I wonder if it has to do with Memnoch the devil, but it's just been forever since I've read, so I don't know. But I'm definitely gonna look at the theories later. Um, Andy, I'm still here, lurking and working. We'll leave you on for much watch time. Thank you for leaving me on. I appreciate it. All right, so I'll try to blast through some more pretty quickly. I did like, again, there's a lot of mirroring, there's a lot of digging into cycles. We see Gabriella took Lestat to see the witches burn and really like force him to look at it. And then we see Lestat doing the same thing to Claudia, which I loved. I love that they made that connection. Um, that also got me a little teary-eyed. There's something to do with fire because Claudia, she was taken out of fire, and that's how she died. Um, and we see this tough love, and we're seeing like where that cycle comes from. When it comes to Lestat, and I feel like that's him acknowledging like how much he messed up, and that's why we kind of see glimmers of of the witch's trial as well as Claudia throughout the season. We see little glimpses of him making her look at the what do you call it, the furnace, um, the incinerator, um, because it's such a pivotal scene that's a fracture in the relationship between him and Claudia. And I find it interesting that Gabriella says, I showed that to you because I wanted you to leave Auvergne. I wanted you to see like basically what your people are capable of and to run away. But instead he still didn't. And so I find it interesting, like that level of manipulation of, hey, why don't you tell your kid I hope you do well and I hope you move on to better things. Why do that? That could have been the conversation. And instead, you bring them to a witch's trial and says, hey, let me shove your face and see these little girls die that you knew. Um, because it did the opposite. It scared him and it made him stay closer to home. Um, so I find that interesting, like just the very like devious manipulation of someone thinking that if I do A, B, and C, this will be my result. But no, we don't know what the result of an action is going to be, right? Um, so it's just like heavily manipulative and very controlling. That's what it is, controlling. Um, I'm gonna go back to Armand. Armand needed to be seen. That's what gets to me. All right, I don't have anything to add there. I'm just sort of looking at my notes. Raglan James. What's so great about Raglan James is, and also we didn't see real Rashid. Real Rashid was looking over Louis, but he was just watching, right? As far as we know, because we don't see him. So I just wonder what Rashid was gonna do if he had to intercede, right? Um, so that's interesting. We do see Raglan James, and what I like about this character is, for all intents and purposes, as far as we know, he's human. He may be some sort of like witch wizard type, um, but it's really his ability to um, conjure up a plan and, and manipulate. He has to be like better at manipulating others, and he also knows how deep the power play, like politically, goes, and the ramifications of Lestat not being alive that can become an issue, which I find it interesting to get them back on track. And that's what ultimately has Daniel agreeing. Um, Lestat refers to Alex as Plastic Dracula Alex. So I wonder if that's what the song is about, the plastic song that I haven't paid attention to the lyrics yet. Um, and then I'm going to kind of wrap this up. Paul is another character. So Paul and Louis this episode made me almost cry. So Louis made me almost cry when he's talking, like really being open with Armand. And Paul made me almost cry and laugh. He totally made me laugh when he was discussing Louis, because he says, "Thank you for loving him in the way that he needed to be loved," and that really taps into the fact that not in real life, only through the through the lens of Gothic literature, Anne Rice's Gothic literature, is that um, Lestat is someone that needs to be kind of like shamed in a way, to be humbled, to kind of keep his crazy at bay. Um, and like Lestat can't be, he can't give, he has a lot of gentle and beautiful moments with Louis, but Louis also needs the rough. Because that's the only way he's really able to like accept love. And we see that through Dreamstat in season 2, when Louis meets Dreamstat in the park, and Lestat says to him, "Show me the only way you know how to love," which is really just Louis acknowledging he doesn't know how to like express his love healthily, and he definitely does not know how to say "I love you." It's too hard. The last person he was able to say that to was Paul, right? And so Paul coming for that moment, that tore me up, because I love Paul. And I also feel like he's so important to the trajectory of Louis' story and where he goes. So Paul will always make me almost cry. But that actor is incredible. I don't know the name, but he's incredible. Um, and he plays it so well. He plays that character so well, because he makes me feel like crying when he says that. But then he pauses and he says, "I still wish you were a woman." And that made me laugh. Like, Paul is still being Paul. He's still being honest. But then Paul listens to the birds. And so something that we saw in Paul's human life um has, I'm trying to think. Something we saw in his human life as being like a sign that, Paul's crazy. Well, maybe he wasn't, because the birds are seem to be like messengers for God in this way. And maybe that's the way of the show saying like we're all God's creatures, because that's a constant question and in the conversation of the show, which is, and in Anne Rice's work, if these monsters exist, does God want them to exist? Are they really damn creatures? What does it mean if God doesn't want them to exist and be accepted? And so I think the bird symbolism, that conversation that we're constantly having with birds, is has to do with that. Um, but getting to the end, I thought Lestat and Louis were gonna kiss, and they didn't. But like Louis touches his neck, Lestat's neck, and his neck looks more healed than Louis', but I guess because he's older and that's a direct source to drinking from Akasha. Um, so yeah, we got no smooches. We got more Devil's Minion, but I didn't get any smooches, so I'm gonna have to accept that. Um, Lestat and Akasha do go off, and it's not a spoiler because I said at the very beginning of the season, which is they went around killing men, anyone with like the XY chromosome, right? And so they did do a lot of destruction, and so we're seeing a lot of destruction. It's kind of it feels different when you're reading a book, but they did go off and do some very terrible things, and we don't know like at what scale they're gonna capture that. So a good example of that is in season one, Lestat drops Louis from the sky, and they have a very like volatile fight. But the way Anne Rice would write that they fought was just simply to write, and we fought like we hadn't since before we had Claudia. So it's just how the show interprets those fights and what are the exact actions to play out visually for the story, that really play into like an interpretation of the material, right? And so I say this all to wrap this up and say that once again, BoJack Horseman is a great reference. It's if you haven't seen it, BoJack Horseman is an animated show. It had like a handful of seasons. It's housed at Netflix, and that's a character that it's an adult cartoon, right? So you're watching it, and he is a character that has like dependency issues. He's an actor. He used to be huge, like in the I guess the early '90s, and now he's kind of like considered a wash up. He's trying to get his career back on, but he just does these terrible things. And every once in a while, he'll have an epiphany about his behavior, and you think that's going to pivot him to do like to correct his behavior, but instead he spirals more and does like worse things, and that's the entirety of the show. And so reflecting on how Lestat is being adapted, it really does remind me of BoJack Horseman. That this is a spiral. We saw at the end of this episode, there's a little bit of a shift, which is Lestat now looks at his mother and sees that, oh, I see that there's like a manipulation going on. I see that how you treated me wasn't right, and then that led me to do like not good things. I'm not going to perform for you. Um, so I don't know what that means. Did he not perform that night, but eventually he did? Like I don't know. I also thought that when Armand took their heads, that might be a contributing factor to why Akasha awoke. That it wouldn't just be the music; it's just that one of her favorites was in harm. So, but that doesn't seem to be what's going on here. So I look forward to however season four is going to be adapted and what they do there. I can't think of anything else to comment on. If anyone, I'll give everyone like a moment in case you want to comment on anything. And you know what I'll do? I'll do this. I'll bring up the other channels that I've been covering before. So, oh, here it is. How do I just hide myself? Yeah, here we go. All right, so really great discussions. Live discussions are Watch With Me LB, My Sweet Perspective, Struggle Reviews TV, Her Real Reviews. Where am I at? Her Real Review, See the Superior, Tip of the Tongue Talks. There's a group of them that get together and have discussions, and they also have individual discussions. For reactions, there is Fox Taco, Frank Freezy, uh, Bad Medicine, The Horror Bandwagon, Real Bear Reacts, which is a great time as Real And how do I get myself back up here? You think I would know by now. And last but not least, because I didn't put them up there, there's The Naughty Librarian, and there's also The Movie Lair, which I'm totally gonna watch after this. Um, but I thoroughly enjoyed this season. Even though like I wasn't happy with necessarily the rush of it all, I did. I'm still looking forward to more seasons and how it's adapted. LB is hilarious. Thanks for watch along and discussion. LB, let me tell you something. When in season two, when Claudia died, I was so distraught, and then I watched LB's review and I was laughing. Like I'm like, how is she making me laugh when I am in emotional distress? So she keeps me going. But yeah, that's it. I'll let everyone go. Thank you for spending time with me and having this discussion. Feel free to leave comments after. I say that genuinely because I love the show and I'm going to think about so much more and I want to discuss it with someone. So I'll be here for that. And man, oh man, what a season. Just remember that life is chaos. So be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and read more books. Bye.